Okhrana surveillance report on Rasputin. From the data of the external surveillance over Grigory Rasputin from the 1st of January 1915. 26th of January, Simonovich, a merchant, has brought Rasputin several bottles of wine. Rasputin gave a dance tonight in honor of some discharged prisoners. The entertainment was attended by the two Volinskys, Shapovalnikova, Maria Galvina, and by 4 unknown men and 6 unknown women. One of the men carried a guitar. The party was very noisy, with singing, dancing, and applause. It lasted till late into the night. 9th of February, at 10:15 in the evening, Rasputin came out of number 1 Spasskaya Street from the Solovyovs, accompanied by 2 ladies, and left for an unknown destination. He returned home alone at 3 o'clock at night. 10th of March, Rasputin had a visit from Yevgenia Karlovna Yegiva, who came to request his cooperation in her endeavors to obtain the contract for supplying the troops with underwear to the amount of 2 million rubles. At approximately 1 o'clock at night, Rasputin received 7 or 8 men and women, led by Ensign Karpatini, a lad of 19, all of whom stayed till 3 o'clock. The whole company shouted, sang, danced, and stamped about, and, together with Rasputin, left in a drunken condition for an unknown destination. 11th of March. At 10:15 in the morning, Rasputin was overtaken by the watch in the Gorokhovaya Street and followed to number 8 Pushkinskaya Street, to the prostitute Tregubova, and thence to the baths. 26th of March. In his absence, Varvara Nishenka came to solicit Rasputin's aid for the release of her uncle, Colonel Zhiletsky, who has been called up from the reserve, for which assistance she promised to pay him 2,000 rubles. 3rd of April. Rasputin brought a woman with him who spent the night in his flat. 15th of April. Rasputin, accompanied by the monk Martian, visited number 45 on the Ligovka, the residence of the burgess Vasily Yevgenyevich Pestrikov. In the absence of the latter, they, with young Pestrikov and another unknown student, arranged a jollification. Someone played the piano, they sang, while Rasputin danced with Pestrikov's parlour maid. 27th of April. Rumour says that Rasputin was sent for from Tsarskaya Sela, but has not yet recovered from the night before. Volinsky and Baroness Kusova advised him against going, telling him that, quote, he would ruin everything, end of quote. The watch overheard them discussing him among themselves. Our Starets is indulging himself too much these days. 9th of May. Rasputin sent the porter's wife to make an appointment with a masseuse, but she refused to receive him, whereupon Rasputin went to the 18-year-old seamstress, Katya, who lives in the same block of houses. Why do you not come to see me? He asked her. She told him that she had no clothes. Come to me in a week's time. I will give you 50 rubles, was his reply. 12th of May. Rasputin brought a prostitute to his flat and locked her up in a room. Later in the day, she was set free by the servant. 14th of May. At 5 o'clock in the evening, Rasputin went to number 15, Malia Dvoryanskaya Street, to Bielkovsky and Cesareva. At 10 o'clock, the watch observed the following scene. One of the women present, having crossed the lighted reception room, went into Bielkovsky's bedroom, which was in darkness. A few minutes later, she reappeared in a great state of excitement. Hereupon it was noticed that Rasputin, who seems to have heard the turmoil, ran out of the dark room into the hall, snatched his hat and coat, and, without putting them on, made for the street. 2 men followed him a few paces behind, and one of them was heard to say, "There he runs," after which they went back into the house. Rasputin, in the meantime, jumped into a cab and drove standing to the Litiani Prospect. keeping a sharp lookout in order to ascertain whether he was being followed. He stopped the cab in the middle of the street so as to allow all the traffic behind him to pass, then, having regained confidence, returned home. 18th of May. The engineer Mendel Neumann has requested Rasputin to intercede with His Majesty on behalf of a man sentenced to imprisonment in a fortress for a period of 8 months for evasion of military service and attempted bribery. 19th of May. Rasputin told Mendel Neumann that his petition had been forwarded to him. 26th of May. Rasputin and the prostitute Tragubova came home in Manus's car in an inebriated condition. While saying goodbye, he kissed and fondled Tragubova passionately. Later he sent the porter's wife to fetch the dressmaker Katya, but she was not at home. 2nd of June. At 1 o'clock in the morning, Rasputin came home drunk in the company of Manus, a financier, and Kuzminsky, a lieutenant in the Gvardeysky equipage. Without going up to his flat, he sent the porter's wife for the masseuse Utina, who lives in the same house, but she could not be found. Then he went himself to flat number 3 to see the dressmaker Katya. Here he was apparently not allowed to enter, as he came back directly and on the stairs assaulted the porter's wife, asking for kisses. The woman managed to disengage herself and ring up his flat, whereupon Dunya, Rasputin's maid, led him away. 15th of June. Rasputin has left for his native village, Pokrovskaya. 7th of July. At 8 o'clock in the evening, Yelizaveta Petrovna Solovyova arrived from Petrograd, and with her Rasputin's wife and Dunya from Tyumen. 9th of July. Rasputin received Father Sergei, the newly appointed priest of Pokrovskaya, who also kissed his hands. At 8 o'clock in the evening, Rasputin left his house, very red in the face, apparently in a slightly inebriated condition, in the company of Solovyova. Yelizaveta Petrovna Solovyova. They mounted a carriage and drove to a distant wood. They came back in an hour's time, Rasputin looking very pale. 11th of July. The wife of an officer, Patushkinskaya, came from Yalutorovsk to see Rasputin. Shortly afterwards, Solovyova and Patushkinskaya emerged from the house, leading Rasputin between them, all three interlocked, Rasputin holding Patushkinskaya by the lower part of the body. They played the gramophone throughout the greater part of the day, Rasputin being exceedingly gay and consuming large quantities of wine and beer. 12th of July, Solovyova has been recalled to Petrograd by her husband. Rasputin was seen walking up and down his yard, holding Patushkinskaya in his arms. 13th of July. After having bathed, Rasputin went to the wife of the local psalm reader, Yermolai. They had apparently made an appointment, as she was waiting for him at the window. He visits her practically each day with intentions of an intimate nature. On this occasion he stayed with her for half an hour. Patushkinskaya has gone back to Yalutorovsk, having been recalled by her husband. She took passionate leave of Rasputin, covering his face, hands and beard with kisses. 15th of July. Dobrovolsky and Avchukhova, who is now his wife, have come to stay with Rasputin. 17th of July. Rasputin has returned from Tobolsk. After lunch, Dobrovolskaya played the piano, while the rest of the company sang in chorus. Rasputin clapped his hands and stamped his feet. Later he walked about with his arms around Dobrovolskaya, without being in the least perturbed by his daughter's presence. The remainder of the day was spent in the fields, where they played ball, sang and ran races. 20th of July. Rasputin, accompanied by Dobrovolsky and the latter's wife, paid a visit to Arapov. He left his host's house in a drunken condition and immediately repaired to the psalm reader's wife. On his return home at 5:40 in the afternoon, he once again set out in spite of Dunya's endeavours to prevent him. He rudely pushed her aside, telling her to go to the devil, and drunk as he was, splashed through the mud without picking his way. While walking along with the agents, he discoursed on the war. Quote, "Last year, when I was lying in hospital, rumors were beginning to spread of the coming war. I begged the Tsar not to fight. I sent him about 20 telegrams of warning, one a very earnest one, for which I was told I was to be brought up for trial. When, however, the Tsar was informed of this, he said, 'Our domestic affairs are not subject to the law.'" 22nd of July, Petershinskia met them at the station in a carriage drawn by a pair of her own horses. She placed Rasputin next to herself and made arrangements for the others in hired cabs. Her husband met them at the flat. At 8 o'clock in the evening, Petershinskia, Dobrovolsky with his wife, and Rasputin's daughters went for a walk in the streets. At approximately 10 o'clock, this had apparently been arranged beforehand, Rasputin was seen to jump out of a window onto the veranda, where he was met by Petershinskia, who had come out of the back door. They both disappeared into the darkness. 23rd of July, Dobrovolsky and his wife have left for Petrograd. At noon, Rasputin, accompanied by his daughters and Petershinskia, went into the wood, which encroached upon the outskirts of the town. The watch observed them near the house half an hour later. Rasputin's daughters went indoors, while he himself took Petershinskia to an empty building at the back of the garden, where they stayed for 20 minutes. 31st of July, at 10:30 they arrived at Petrograd. He was met at the station by Privy Councillor Nikolai Vasilyevich Solovyov. His wife had visited Rasputin at Pokrovskia. They took a cab and drove to Solovyov's residence on the Gorokhovaya, number 69. 5th of August, Rasputin is on his way back to Pokrovskia. He was seen off by Tatiana Shakhovskaya, Princess Tatiana Shakhovskaya, Baroness Kusova, Miller, and Dobrovolsky and his wife, while Vyrubova and von Pistelkors brought him to the station in their car, but did not come onto the platform. During the journey, he made the acquaintance of 3 unknown ladies who left the train at Kamyshlov. They were met by some staff officers, to whom the ladies pointed out Rasputin. In their conversation, they mentioned Gusova's attempt on Rasputin and said something about a hospital. Having heard the ladies out, a lieutenant colonel who was present turned to another field officer with the words, "You see, if they had gone with him a little further, the mother would have lost the daughter, or vice versa. There is no denying the fact that this individual has hypnotic powers." Before reaching the station at Bui, Rasputin came over to the carriage occupied by the agents who were travelling with him and began to talk about the war. In his opinion, it was progressing very unfavourably, and a drastic change was imminent at Petrograd. 10th of August. At 10 o'clock the following morning, Rasputin came out of his house and began questioning the agents about yesterday's happenings, sighing and wondering at having got so drunk, since, according to his own words, he had only 3 bottles of vodka. He repeated over and over again, "Ah, my dear fellows, that was an ugly business." Among other things, he mentioned that Zhunkovsky had been made to resign, expressing the fear that he was, perhaps, attributing his forced retirement to him, Rasputin. He disclaimed all knowledge of him, however, and professed to have nothing to do with his dismissal. He further said, "Your governor will soon be removed also," and to the question whether he was referring to Count Adelberg, replied, "No, I don't know his name," and changed the conversation. 19th of August. Rasputin went to see Deacon Yermolai, who immediately on his arrival left for the church. Rasputin stayed with the deacon's wife for at least an hour. The priest, Father Nikolai, who had gone to Tobolsk to see Voronova, brought back the news, communicated to him by Voronova, that the governor intended to have Rasputin arrested and imprisoned for 3 months for objectionable behaviour and drunkenness, but that owing to Voronova's intercession, he had relented. Rasputin, on hearing this, spat vigorously on the ground, saying, "What is the governor to me?" 9th of September. When Rasputin went to see his brother Nikolai, who had at the time several other visitors in the house, their father made his appearance. The old man abused his son Grigory with the vilest expressions, Rasputin, in a savage fury, jumped up from the table where he was sitting, pushed his father into the yard, knocked him down and belaboured him with his fists, while the old man yelled, "How dare you, miscreant!" They were separated with difficulty. Examination proved that the father had received a large purple bruise which completely closed his eye. Having recovered, the indomitable old man again attacked his son, abusing him worse than before. He threatened to tell everybody that Grigory was an ignorant old fool who only knew, quote, how to fondle the maid Dunia's soft parts. This time, Rasputin had to be held down with force to prevent him from assaulting his father again. They were both exceedingly drunk. 19th of September. Rasputin has received a typed letter dated the 16th of September, the contents of which were as follows. Grigory, our fatherland is in danger. There is talk of concluding a dishonorable peace. The fact that you receive from the general headquarters telegrams in cipher proves that you have great influence. Hence we, the chosen ones, ask you to arrange matters so that ministers should be made responsible before the people and that the State Duma should be convened on the 23rd of September of this year in order that our country may be saved from ruin. If you do not comply with our order, we shall kill you. No mercy will be shown to you. Our hand will not shrink as did the hand of Gusyeva. Wherever you are, death will follow you. The die has been cast. The lot has fallen on us 10 chosen men. 22nd of October. At 8 o'clock in the evening, Rasputin was visited by an unknown lady, who a few moments later came out in a very agitated condition. The maid caught her up on the stairs, saying, "He wants you to speak to him. He feels lonely." The lady, who looked greatly disconcerted, refused at first, saying that she would return tomorrow, but finally agreed to go back. She stayed till late. 3rd of November. An unknown woman visited Rasputin with a view to soliciting his aid on behalf of her husband, an ensign, who was lying in one of the Petrograd hospitals. She wished him to be kept there. Coming down the stairs, she told the porter's wife how strange she thought Rasputin, and described her reception, quote, "I was admitted by a girl who took me into a room where I waited for Rasputin. I had not met him before. The first thing he said to me was, 'Come with me, undress.' I took my clothes off and followed him through a door leading into a room to the left. He paid scant attention to my petition, but plucked my face, then my breasts, mumbling all the time, 'Kiss me, I have taken a fancy to you.' When he had written the note I was asking for, he began bothering me again, 'Kiss me, I love you.' In the end, he would not give me the note, saying, 'I am angry with you, come tomorrow.' The agent Terekov asked the lady whether she intended coming back, but she answered, 'No, going to him for assistance means paying money in advance, anything he cares to name. Since I cannot do that, I shall not return.' 5th to 6th November, Rasputin went by car to Tsarskaya Selo, and he returned also by car on the 6th at 10:15 in the morning with Vyarubova. While leaving the car, he made the sign of the cross over Vyarubova, who then drove away. Later, Rasputin drove to an unknown destination, accompanied by the merchant Boberman. They came back at 5 o'clock, Rasputin being slightly inebriated. He took long and tender leave of Boberman at the door. On his way up to the flat, he asked, "Has anybody been to see me?" He was told that 2 ladies had called. "Were they pretty?" "Good, that is what I want." At approximately 7 o'clock, he left the house, hardly awake. He gave the porter's wife 10 rubles on his way out, mumbling to himself something incoherent and banging with his stick. 14th of November, Rasputin came home very drunk in the company of Tatyana Shakhovskaya. They then left directly. He came back at 2 o'clock at night, completely overcome with drink. 15th of November, Rasputin's secretary, Simonovich, has brought a basket containing 6 bottles of Madeira, some caviar and cheese. 25th of November, Rasputin came home at 5 o'clock in the morning. The actress Varvarova spent the night in his rooms. 1st of December, Rasputin has dispatched a telegram. Moscow, Malia Dmitrievka, 3, to Miklasevskaya. Why is Korzinkina carrying with the business. Rasputin drove with Dolgorukia, Princess Dolgorukia, to the Hotel Astoria, where he stayed the whole night. 3rd of December, Rasputin left his flat in the company of Filipov and returned home drunk. Shortly after, Leichhardt, near Mordvina, paid him a call for the first time to ask his intercession on behalf of her husband. When, however, Rasputin asked her to kiss him, she left. She was followed by Senator Mamontov's mistress, Voskoboynikova, to whom Rasputin suggested that she should visit him at 1 o'clock at night. 8th of December, Romanovich came to call for Rasputin in his car, and they both drove to the restaurant Donon, Moika 24. Thence they sent the chauffeur to the Hotel Russia to fetch Janulova and Filipova. After dinner was over, Rasputin accompanied these ladies to the Hotel Russia, where they were staying. 12th of December, Rasputin arrived home at 9:50 in the morning, in the society of Varvarova. According to the cab driver, they had come from the Alexeyevsky Street. He had most probably spent the night with Varvarova. 14th of December. At approximately 2 o'clock at night, Rasputin was seen coming out of number 11 Verstadskia Street, the residence of Sveshina, wife of a colonel in the general staff, accompanied by Maria Markovna Yasininskaya, a woman of 21 years of age, and the wife of a burgess who lives at number 104 on the Moika Canal. They went by car in the direction of Novaya Derevnya to the Villa Roda restaurant, where, however, they were not admitted owing to the lateness of the hour. Determined to get in, Rasputin started banging on the door and pulling at the bell, having previously tipped the policeman on duty in order that he might not interfere with his roistering. Eventually they drove to number 49 Novaya Derevnya to Masalski's Gypsy Chorus, where they stayed till 10 o'clock the next morning. They emerged, both fairly drunk, and went to Yasininskaya's flat, whence Rasputin departed at 12 o'clock. Towards the evening, he left for Tsarskaya Selo. 15th of December, Rasputin went by car to the Villa Roda restaurant, accompanied by Lieutenant Colonel Yazersky, Varvarova, and 2 unknown women. The watch left them there at 2 o'clock at night. 20th of December, Rasputin and Peterum's secretary drove to number 26A Piasorchnia Street to see the burgess Andrei Ippolitovich Knirasha, a young man of 28 years of age, who is separated from his wife. The Villa Roda restaurant was commissioned to supply 2 baskets of wine and a gypsy chorus. The watch observed through the windows that Rasputin was dancing. 2 unknown men brought him home at 7 o'clock in the morning, dead drunk. 24th of December, I.Z. Osipenko visited Rasputin at 7 o'clock in the morning. An hour or so later, a hired motor drove up to the house, bringing Princess Tatiana Fyodorovna Shekhovskaya, the wife of Lieutenant von Pistolkors, and an unknown officer. Only Princess Shekhovskaya went up to the flat and emerged 10 minutes later with Rasputin and Osipenko. They all settled into the car and drove off, apparently to the Alexander Nevsky Monastery. At 8:15 in the evening, another car drove up, bringing the Countess Olga Erikovna Kreutz and the daughter of Acting Secretary of State Golovin. The latter went up to the flat, but reappeared directly with the peasant woman Akulina Nikitishna Loktinskaya. They in their turn made for the Alexander Nevsky Monastery and entered the cathedral, where Rasputin was already installed. The watch could detect neither the ladies nor the officer who had come with him. After the service was over, Rasputin and Osipenko repaired to the apartments of the Metropolitan, but their departure was not observed. 2 ladies, the watch could not ascertain who they were, as they saw them only sideways, went to the detached building to the right of the cathedral, where they were lost to view. Rasputin returned home on the 25th of December at 9 o'clock in the morning. 1916, 4th of January. Rasputin and Osipenko returned to the flat at about midnight. Osipenko left directly. At 1 o'clock arrived Yelena Porfirievna Turevich, a gentlewoman by birth, owner of a private school for girls. She stayed for an hour. 8th of January, Rasputin called at number 6 Gagarinskaya Street. He came home at 3 o'clock at night, followed by 2 ladies. Having stayed with him for 2 hours, the ladies left. 10th of January, Klyonovsky, a Secretary of State, and Turovich have brought more wine today. Gil, a captain's wife, spent the night of 10th to the 11th in Rasputin's flat. Today, being Rasputin's name's day, he was visited by many people, all of whom brought presents for him. Those of the visitors who stayed spent the evening dancing, singing, and playing the gramophone, the guitar, and the balalaika. Part of the time was given up to prayers and to the singing of hymns. The guests left at 2 o'clock. 16th of January. Rasputin has given a letter to the prostitute Tragubova, according to private information supplied by one of the servants of the Pistol Corps. Rasputin was seen performing strange rites and mumbling incomprehensible words over the 2 Pistol Corps, whom he had made to kneel down before him. 17th of January, an unknown lady paid Rasputin a call at midnight and stayed until 3 o'clock. 18th of January, Rasputin returned home at 7:30 in the morning with 2 men and a lady. He was completely drunk and sang loudly in the streets. The unknown persons went away after leaving Rasputin at his door. He spent the morning shouting and stamping about in his flat. Karavya and her daughter Mymeskul, who came to see Rasputin but were not received by him, abused him on their way out, calling him a scurvy peasant, and telling the agents that on one occasion, when they were at the Villa Aurora restaurant, they saw Rasputin running through the saloon, dressed only in his shirt, for which misdemeanor the restaurant was closed. 24th of January, Rasputin did not come home till 5 o'clock in the morning. At 5 in the afternoon, he drove with Dobrovolskia and Golovina to Our Saviour's Church in Great Spasskia Street, where the Metropolitan Petirim was holding an all-night requiem service in memory of the deceased. 29th of January. A petitioner by the name of Tatarinova told the agents that while Rasputin was interviewing her, he hugged and kissed some young lady who had also come to see him. This behavior had so outraged her sense of decency that she refused to have anything more to do with him. Rasputin and Filipov went to the restaurant Danon. Later in the evening, they drove to the Alexander Nevsky Monastery. 8th of February. Rasputin, who was accompanied by 2 unknown officials, went by taxi to the Nikolaevsky Cavalry College and to the Polish Roman Catholic Church on the Drogovia Street. Knirsha seems to have presented him with several bottles of wine. At 8:15 in the evening, Rasputin was visited by 5 women who, according to the cab driver, had come from the Ofitserskia Street. The watch heard singing, dancing and music. The guests left at 3 o'clock. No petitioners were received during the day.